Today we're going to do what's called a Hugelkultur. It's an old technique that's helped to revitalize your gardens, your raised beds, and that gives them some longevity. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do it here in Essence of the Earth and a component of the gathering place. My wife Eliza, somebody's behind me here, little Zophie, one of our Great Pyrenees, and so we're going to do this Hugelkultur. My wife Eliza's already done 2 videos on our super tonics and our cold and flu formula, and this week that she's gone down to Alabama, she's done a video on a TV show called End Time Mission, and so she's gone for the week, and I'm here and I'm going to do this while she's gone, and hopefully she'll be surprised when she comes back. But let me show you what I got done so far. Here's our sheep. They're all happy. They were playing in this yesterday, but I dug this out, and what the purpose is what you do is I got some oak logs here that I quartered. I was really, I do a little woodworking. I don't know if that sun's blaring yet. Do a little woodworking, and I use those quarter logs for legs for like coffee tables, but I've been using walnut, cherry, and cedar for legs. And what's interesting is those are actually, I didn't plan this, but those are 3 woods that you don't want to put in a Hugelkultur. Walnut and has like something that's poisonous, especially to tomato plants. Same with cherry and cedar also. And probably I wouldn't do pine either, but I got some red oak over here. There could be a little bit of white oak. And I don't plan on using those for legs. So I'm like, well, that'll be perfect to lay out on this ditch that I made and just lay it out as a bottom. And then I'll continue to fill I got some leaves on our trailer and some broken up where I split firewood. I'm going to put that on top. It's kind of a big ditch. I probably don't have enough. And then I got 2 little tricks that I've learned just this week in researching that I never really heard before that will help bring life and vitality back to your dead soils. And I'll do that a little later on. But right now I got this started. I'm gonna put this in, and have I mentioned my wife don't know I'm doing this? I got a tip of the week, and this tip of the week is for all the wives out there. And the tip is, it might not be the best thing to leave your husband alone for a week, especially when they have access to a skid loader. It's not my fault, but I promise you, I think she's gonna love it. Trust me. Okay, so I'm gonna take a break here and start loading this up with the oak logs, and then I'll show you that, and then we'll just keep building this as we go. Hopefully I ain't gonna be contending too much with the sheep. Problem is, outside the gate is where I got some more compost, and they want to be escape artists. But we're gonna see how we do. But in the meantime, we'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, the skid loader won't start, so we're gonna charge the battery. But in the meantime, this is where we're at. As the sheep are eating my compost. And so far, I got some more of those oak, but just filling in all the way the rest of the way with those oak boards, and then any branches I could collect, and then put this mulch that I have in the wheelbarrow that they're eating. They're acting like they're doing something wrong here. And so we're just gonna put that and just cover it all the way down for the next layer. I might just use the wheelbarrow to get the rest of these oak legs to just fill the rest of this up. And then once we get those filled and I may not have enough compost to put on top, but hopefully I will, because we're supposed to get a lot of rain tomorrow. But and then I'm going to show you the couple things I learned that is pretty fascinating. I've got my shadow in the way here. But so far, we're making progress. I think they like it. Okay, we're making progress here. I kind of ran into a problem though. I had 2 bags of apples, and that distracted the sheep to give me a few wheelbarrows, but now they're all at the gate. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get the rest of the compost, but that's my problem. But this is what I got so far. Let me see if I could switch this thing around. Oh wow, where's the thingamajig? Oh well, I guess I'll flip the phone around. Well, so we'll just spread out those wheelbarrows and just keep the compost coming, the leaves and debris. And we just throw whatever sticks. That will just fill up into the hole. And as I said, remember not to use walnut, cherry, or cedar, and I'm going to say pine as well. You know, any type of other hardwoods. I got oak. We got persimmons trees. I never know anything about persimmons trees being bad. So persimmons and some elderberry, and just we have over in this field. There's sort of volunteers, all these little saplings sticking up. That's motherwort. You know, the sheep kind of like the motherwort, and so does the honeybees, and it's good for well, for the mother with the female, for female things. And it's a good herb. It gets about this tall, and it gets a nice little flower. I mean, it gets flower pretty much goes up the stems, and the honeybees like it, other beneficials, and then you know the sheep come in here and they end up eating it all. And you know, I just grabbed some of those and threw them in here as well. So you know, whatever you can. I'm going to continue on. Hopefully I can keep the sheep distracted, and I'm going to try to get the rest of at least this trailer load. And if I run out, then I'll just take a break, go to lunch, and go back up, because it's, you know, where I split wood, I'll just keep scraping up and fill the trailer up again. Get this all filled in. I kind of like to want to get this filled in, show you the two things I want to show you I'm going to do with it, and then I like to get some of this dirt back on, because like I said, we're going to get a lot of rain. And so here we are so far, Hugelkultur, and I'll see you in a little bit. All right, well, I got the next step finished. We got the leaves, and we got some pieces of bark, just the debris from a log splitter. And so we just put that on top of those oak pieces and other branches. And so the next part is I just want to put a skim of soil on top of this. And then after I just put maybe an inch, maybe a couple inches on top of this compost, these leaves, I want to, not sure what Shamar is barking at. These are the two things that I want to talk about. This is what it looks like. It's rice. And then this soil here, in fact, during World War II, let me flip this thing around. Let me show you how you flip it. During World War II, what they did in this is, when you got dead soil, you know, soil that's just been used from the previous year, what they learned to do to jumpstart the soil and to inoculate it is they went out in the woods, and they find a place where there was big trees, and then they took away the leaves, and then they took a shovel and they shovel up some of the forest soil that is just filled with microbes and all sorts of just the beneficials, millions of them, if not billions, that are just thriving, microscopic microbes that just bring the soil alive as it's been undisturbed in the forest, as things just fall and lay. And they take a handful and they place it into their garden beds, and it begins to, that little bit begins to multiply, and it begins to bring their soil alive, because those microbes, they just multiply by the thousands upon thousands within a short, within hours, and it just keeps multiplying. And that's all they did to revitalize their soils, was go out in the forest and take a handful and periodically put it in their garden beds. And so I went into the forest and I got a bucket of that. And the rice, what the rice does, and I never heard of this, but I found it, I was just going through YouTube watching agricultural and organic farming, and they call it the rice trick. And you could just YouTube it. There's many people that do it. And what the rice does is, what you do is, I'm not gonna, because we're in the middle of February, I'm gonna use dry rice. You could cook it, and then, you know, it'll work a little quicker if you cook it. But what I'm gonna do is, what you really want to do, I'm gonna do a little different, because I'm starting from this big ditch and I'm working up. But if you have already a garden bed that's already been made and from the previous year, what you do is you dig down 6 to 8 inches and you put a half a cup of rice in, and then you cover it over and you pack it in. And you do that, you know, they say periodically, every 3 or 4 or 5 feet, or maybe every 2 or 3 feet, 4 feet. And you just stick those pockets and put like a half a cup of rice in it. And what that rice does is, once it starts to activate and get moist, and it doesn't invite the earthworms yet, what it does is the same microbes that are alive in the forest soil, they're just so attracted to when the rice starts to break down. And as they start to eat the rice and drawn to the rice, it begins to create like a fungus, like a mycelium type fungus, and that's what the earthworms love. And so that attracts the earthworms. And so you have another thing with the rice trick that helps to rejuvenate your old soil. But being that I'm starting from scratch, and I'm gonna be honest, when I dug this ditch yesterday, I have not seen one worm. I mean, it is the middle of February, but I haven't seen one worm whatsoever. And so I'm gonna put a couple inches layer of soil on top of this Hügelkultur, and then I'm going to put the forest soil in periodic on spots, and then I may cover it over a little more, and then I may do pockets of rice, and then cover the whole thing over. And then maybe next month, when we're getting close to planting, I may do the rice thing again. And if I have some extra forest soil to do that, you know, we got other beds that we're gonna try that. But those are 2 methods that I never heard of, but that I just come across, of going into the forest, getting forest soil that is just filled with the beneficial microbes that you need, that just makes your soil alive and bring forth the ecosystem, which helps the worms flourish. But then the rice also does the same thing, and then that, as those microbes eat the rice, it'll draw the worms even more. And so it's like a 1-2 punch. And so, and I'll explain later even more with the Hugelkultur, of just what it does and why it works so well. It just contains moisture a whole lot better than if you don't have it. As the wood and that breaks down, it just also creates a habitation for the microbes. And so the Hugelkultur has been known to just be a very excellent way to keep your garden. It'll work better next year, and then even better the year after that. You know, this year it's going to take a little bit for those oaks to break down, but it'll still hold water. And so what I'm going to do is just, like I said, put the soil on, put the forest soil on it. I may even just put the rice in between, and then just cover the whole thing over, and then come back next month and maybe do a little bit more with the rice and the forest soil. And so there we are. I'll show you a finished product. Well, my helper finally collapsed. He worked hard today. Well, here's the finished product, sort of, kinda. It's gonna rain tomorrow, so it'll settle in. And then next week sometime we'll have to cover it up. But that's about a wrap for today. I don't feel like doing it anymore. And I think Sophie is calling it quits. And so this is a Hugelkultur. I'm not sure what we will end up planting in it, but it should last for quite a few years, as those oak boards and oak, what I was going to use for legs, as they're going to take some time to decay, and this will be a pretty healthy bed. And maybe in about a month I'm going to put another little bit of some rice in, about 6 to 8 inches deep, and go get some more forest soil, as well as our other raised beds. But this is a Hugelkultur, and I hope you maybe can have the ability to do it yourself one of these days. But if you have a lot of wood scraps and tree branches and have the ability to dig yourself a ditch, I mean, you don't necessarily have to dig a ditch. You could just start from ground up and it'll be just a high raised bed. Or if you build raised beds that are, you know, about 3 feet high, or even maybe 30 inches high, you could be able to put in the base some branches and even some logs, and then build it up from there, because, you know, the roots are only going to go down so far. And so, but that's what's called a Hugelkultur, and that's how they used to do it back in the day when they needed, you know, it helps during droughts, and it just helps to build the ecosystem. But thank you for joining us. I bless you. This is gathering essence from the earth.